All right, good afternoon. I'd like to introduce myself, Judith Andraco. I'm the Regulatory Officer for the Site Remediation and Waste Management Program. Before we get started, just wanted to have all of you have the opportunity to read our general disclaimer for this presentation. The information is to facilitate discussions. There's not going to be any final decision regarding information that we talk about today. Any pictures that you see in these slides are not any product or service that is going to be endorsed by DEP. We just wanted to make sure that these disclaimers were crystal clear right at the beginning. So let's forward to the next slide. I'd like to welcome you to the NJDEP stakeholder meeting. We're here for the stakeholder meeting series, and we're going to be discussing the single-use plastic bag ban, e-commerce, and alternative bags. I am your moderator for today's presentation. I would like you to please keep your microphones muted throughout the presentation, and we ask that for the chat function that you only use the chat function if you're having technical issues. If you're missing audio, if you're missing video, if you're not able to connect properly, please reach out to us in the chat function. We have people on staff that are going to be checking to make sure that the technological issues are taken care of as we go along. Next slide. This is just an in-house rules friendly reminder. If you've dialed into the meeting, we ask that you email Katie Greer at katie.greer@dep.nj.gov. We'll be unable to identify your name if you're a dialed in attendee. We just get your phone number. So we'd like to make sure that we have you marked down as attending. So please email Katie when you get an opportunity to do so. Next slide. For more of our friendly reminders, I'd like to go over some of our MS team logistics. The chat function, as discussed a few moments ago, we're going to be using for technical difficulties only. The raise your hand function, the little smiley face with the little waving person, please use that function to raise your hand if you have a comment or a question as we go along throughout this stakeholder meeting. After the presenter concludes different parts of the presentation, I'll be selecting people to speak based upon the timing of when you put up your hand through that function. When you are selected to speak, we ask that you please unmute your microphone, lower your hand, and begin our lovely chat in between talking about our issues. In the interest of time, we are going to have a staff member that may interject in the discussion with a cue to keep us on schedule. Right now, we're scheduled from 1 until 4 o'clock today. Hopefully, we'll be able to get to all of your concerns and issues as we go along. We'll be wrapping up individual discussions and moving on to next stages in the presentation as we go along this afternoon. Next slide. Now, the goals of our meeting are pretty simple. We're here because we'd like to hear from you, the industry experts, and our local and county partners on how we can craft our rules to make them more efficient and more useful for the regulated community. Our experience is that the final product is often far superior if we receive input from our regulated community and those members that have different perspectives. As our moderator, I will provide direction to ensure that all present have an opportunity to provide input and comment and to keep us on track. Next slide. I'd like to introduce our DEP rulemaking team. Again, my name is Judith Andraco. I'm the regulatory officer for our program in the Assistant Commissioner's Office. From the Bureau of Planning and Licensing, we have Erin Jensen, Julia Rossi, Chris Milkevich, Dylan O'Brien, Lauren Nazario, Dana Lawson, Seth Hackman, and Jill Aspinwall. From our Bureau of Solid Waste Permitting, we have Katie Greer. And from Compliance and Enforcement, we have Sonia Silcox. At this point, I would like to introduce Rule Manager Erin Jensen, who's going to lead us through our discussions today. Take it away, Erin.
Hello, everyone. How's it going? Thank you for being with us today. So we are going to start with, all right, so we're going to start with our outline here. So this is our outline for the day. We're going to cover some e-commerce topics, exempt plastic bags, alternatives to plastic, and then we'll get on to our closing remarks. We'll always stop for questions throughout. So we're just going to start by going over some of the general definitions that may be referenced throughout the presentation. So these are directly from the law. A store is defined as a grocery store, convenience store, liquor store, pharmacy, drugstore, or other retail establishment. A food service business is one that sells or provides food for consumption on or off the premises, including establishments such as a restaurant, cafe, delicatessen, coffee shop, convenience store, grocery store, vending truck or cart, food truck, movie theater or business, or institutional cafeteria, including those operated by a government entity. Grocery store is defined as a self-service retail establishment that occupies at least 2,500 square feet and sells household foodstuffs for off-site consumption, and does not include an establishment that handles only prepackaged foods that does not require time or temperature controls for food safety. A couple more definitions in regards to single-use bags. Plastic means a synthetic material made from linking monomers through a chemical reaction to create an organic polymer chain that can be molded or extruded at high heat into various solid forms, retaining their defined shapes during the life cycle and after disposal. A single-use plastic carryout bag means a carryout bag made of plastic that's not a reusable bag. Single-use paper means a carryout bag made of paper that is not a reusable carryout bag. And our definition of a reusable carryout bag is one that is made of polypropylene, PET nonwoven fabric, nylon, cloth, hemp product, or other machine washable fabric, has stitched handles, and is designed and manufactured for multiple reuse. So as stated in the agenda, we're going to start with our e-commerce questions. Here's our first question. With the single-use bag ban, is your store or business switching to an alternative bag or no bags at all? Just to clarify a little bit, most stores will no longer be able to use plastic, and then grocery stores will not be able to use paper as well. So we want to get an idea of what plans you have to change to an alternative bag style, or are you going to go bagless? So I'd love to have some input on that. Just go ahead and raise your hand and Judy will call on you.
Okay, the first person with their hand up is registering as Bonita guest. Please identify yourself and ask your question. Provide your comment. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I was just raising my hand because I thought you guys wanted an indication of how many were going to an alternative bag. I do not have a comment.
Got it. Thank you. No, we're looking to see which businesses want to switch and what that alternative may look like to them and what the plans are, so we can have an idea.
We definitely have plans, which is a reusable bag, but I just thought that you just wanted to get an acknowledgement. That's the only comment I have. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Nancy and Fama.
Yes, hello, good morning. So for us, we have 5 Foodtown stores. We are switching to an alternative bag, woven bag, which we anticipate having to charge our customers anywhere from 35 to 40 cents. So that is going to have a very negative impact on our customers. We also will be offering boxes that we get into the store from basically with handles that consumers can access at no charge. That's also going to create logistical issues with the online delivery. So that's really how we have responded to the law.
Now, when you were talking about using boxes, were you going to be using boxes from some of the materials and items that you sell, or were you going to
Yes.
be actually
Yes.
ordering separate boxes?
No. We're going to be using, so we get gallons of water from various retail manufacturers, and we can use those boxes that are pretty large, actually, because they do have handles. And, as we're in particular with the online ordering, as we think about the transfer of those goods and having people bring them into their homes and have delivery services transport them, we felt that the handle was very important. So we will be using boxes that we already have. We're not purchasing boxes, but we have to purchase the woven bags. So that will be, like I said, anywhere between 35 and 40 cents. And then the boxes will be free at the front as well.
All right, thank you very much. Next, we have Neil Adams.
Yes, I have a question for you. For our retail stores, are we allowed to use single-use paper bags instead of the plastic bags?
Yes, the paper bags will only be limited to grocery stores. So grocery stores will not be permitted to sell or provide plastic or paper bags, but all other retail can use paper and not plastic.
All right, then we'll be switching to paper.
Thank you very much. Do we have any additional discussion comments? Okay, Erin, I don't see any more raised hands at this point. I don't know if we want to move on.
Sure, no problem. All right, so we'll move on to our next question, which is what alternatives to single-use carryout bags are third-party shoppers considering? This is typically companies that work with a customer. They order through this app or web page, and then they go to the store and do shopping, or possibly just pick up food that's already, or other items that are already packaged, and then deliver them to the customer.
Okay, we don't have any hands yet. I'm thinking, well, when we talk about alternatives, like we had discussed earlier, there were boxes, there were new bags for these third-party shoppers. Erin, what exactly are we talking about with third-party shoppers?
Things like Instacart, DoorDash, Grubhub, all those sort of online apps that customers can order through to do the shopping for them, or just go and pick up and deliver food for them. But it's a third party. It's not done by the actual store itself.
So basically, we're looking to see if third-party shopper organizations are going to be using different materials than what they
how they'll
are
be
using now.
educating their staff on what they're going to recommend them to do. For example, will they use will the staffs, which are typically just sort of consultants of the business, is what I understand, will they be shopping with their own bags and then just dropping off loose items to a customer? Or will there be specific bags they need to use? Will they just use whatever bags happen to be available in the stores that they're going to? Or if they have to purchase bags there, how is that going to affect? Like, will that be a function of the app? There's lots of questions around that area. So I'd love to get feedback on what people are already thinking about or considering doing for those types of businesses.
And like as an agency, we're not out there on the front lines. We only know as individuals what we see. So if any of you who are attending could give us any additional information and insight as to what's actually happening out there and what you're planning to do, that would be great, because it would give us a better idea of how this law would be implemented. Do we have any more hands? We have about 57 people attending. We don't have any responses yet for this question.
All right, maybe we don't have any third parties, shop or businesses in the audience today.
All right, I'll leave it to you and your discretion whether you want to move on, Erin.
Yeah, I guess if there's no comments or questions, we can move on.
Okay.
So our next section of questions are about bag exemptions. These exemptions are a part of the definition of what a carryout bag is. So I have those exemptions up on the screen. So the exemptions to what a carryout bag is are a bag used solely to contain or wrapped uncooked meat, fish, or poultry. A bag used solely to package loose items such as fruits, vegetables, nuts, coffee, grains, baked goods, candy, greeting cards, flowers, or small hardware items. A bag used solely to contain live animals such as fish or insects sold in a pet store. A bag used solely to contain food sliced or prepared to order, including super hot food. A laundry, dry cleaning, or garment bag. A bag provided by a pharmacy to carry prescription drugs. And a newspaper bag. We also have the ability through rule, regulation, or guidance to add any similar bag as determined by the department to this list. So we are going to speak right now about the exemption that says a bag used solely to contain food sliced or prepared to order, including super hot food. These are some examples of what the department is considering as those types of bags that would meet this exemption. For example, a bag used for hot foods like soups or chilies with a solid base used to stabilize those hot foods. And bags used specifically to hold a designated item, considering a bag meant to hold a rotisserie chicken, or bags used in the deli counter to hold fresh sliced cheeses and meats. Our question for you is, how does your interpretation of this exemption align with the department's interpretation? So I'm going to put that out for all of you. Any feedback or comments?
All right, first we have Nancy Ann Fama.
I believe that's exactly how I interpreted it. So especially, and can I ask, are we going to be able to get a copy of this presentation emailed to us? I think it would be helpful if we could.
Yes, a recording of the presentation along with a transcript will be posted on the DEP's website once everything's processed. The copies of the original or the first stakeholder meeting are already live, and that link, you can find it in the invitation to this meeting.
Oh, great, thank you. Okay, but I think that was exactly how I understood it to be.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much. Next we have A. Ambrose.
Hello, thank you. I haven't figured out how to rename myself on Teams yet. Erin, if you don't mind going back to the previous slide just for a second,
Sure.
just to show those examples. So I agree with the department's interpretation. My one concern is particularly the Wawa bag, just making sure that customers are educated on why that kind of bag is permitted and not one at point of sale. Just because I feel like that might be easily confused, because that looks exactly like the kind of bag that would be given to a customer at point of sale. So not sure how Wawa or any other organization would handle that, but just putting that out there, that if I were a consumer, I would be a little confused as to why that bag is permitted and not another kind.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much for your insights. Do we have any other hands raised? Oh, we have Mary Ellen Papard. Hi, Mary Ellen, how are you?
Hi, how are you doing?
Good, thanks.
Good to see everyone again. Thanks. I just wanted to, I think, answer the previous caller's question, or not answer, but just, I think in general, one way to look at it is that for our members, typically a lot of these items that are packaged for food safety reasons or safety reasons, such as super hot food, it's going to be immediately handed to you from the cashier, or the associate, or if it's self-serve, whatever it is, right there as you're picking up the food. But it's not like the checkout point of sale. So it's not the same thing as, so you're going to get it right there to immediately get your hot food, and then you're going to take that bag, and maybe you have picked up, a soda or whatever else along the way, and then you're going to go to the checkout. So I think it's sort of a distinction of, you want to have that bag immediately to place the items in for safety purposes. And then there may be other items that, are not safety issues that you can just, carry in your hands or whatnot. Mm-hmm. If that helps.
Thank you.
Yes, I understand that. I just want to make sure that customers also understand that, especially in a place like Wawa, where you pick up items not necessarily always at point of sale. You know what I mean? There's definitely just some education that might need to happen, and I want to make sure that the people that are implementing these rules don't feel like they have to take the brunt of it.
No, absolutely. And I know our members are working on education right now, and communication tools and signage, and they have some communication plans in place.
Thank you all.
All right, would anyone else like to provide additional comment and engage in discussion? Okay, I don't see any more hands up.
Okay.
Erin, we might want to move on.
Sure. So our next question is sort of a follow-up question. So based on all the exemptions that we looked at a little bit ago, should the department further define or clarify single-use plastic carryout bags or any exempt plastic bags? So based on the definitions and the exemptions we looked at, do you think any of them need further clarification or any additional definition?
First, we'll hear from John Weber. Hi, John. How are you?
I am well, thank you. John Weber from the Surfrider Foundation. Every bag legislation, bag ban, whatever, across the country, and there are hundreds of them, pretty much they all have some form of exemptions. And my observation seems that these are pretty much in line with any other exemptions I've ever seen. So, dry cleaning bags, newspaper bags, all those other, product bags. So it seems to be in line with that. And but just I want to impress upon people that that still means that there is a ton of plastic film out there, because there's still going to be plenty of plastic bags, even though we're banning certain types. So, but these exemptions seem in line with what we've seen everywhere in like pretty much any jurisdiction around the country.
Other than how the language is actually spelled out in the statute, John, could you recommend any additional descriptions or areas that might need further definition, instead of, like, sure, there's the bags for dry cleaning, but do you think that there's any additional specifics that would be needed within our rules? Basically, do you think that there's any additional language warranted that would spell out a little more clearly those exempt types of bags or bags? Sorry.
No, again, on the exemptions, no, I think we got it right. And, it's probably a separate question, but I think our definition of a reusable bag is also something that we got right in this legislation. So I think it's right on.
All right, thank you. Next we have Linda Doherty.
Hi, this is Linda Doherty with the New Jersey Food Council.
Hi, Linda, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. So one thing I do want to point out, that New Jersey does have the most unique law in the country, because we do ban not only plastic single-use bags, but paper. So what we're seeing right now in the industry is great innovation in this space. for grocery stores with the expansion of reusable bags that don't have plastic in them, but they have plant-based ingredients such as cornstarch or other types of products. So we are going to petition DEP to take a strong look at some of these alternatives, because our ultimate goal is to ban plastic, which we are doing, and some of these very innovative alternatives are bags that should be accepted for a reusable bag definition.
All right. Thank you very much for your input. Next, we have Laura Russoman. I hope I didn't butcher your last name. Laura, you're still muted. Okay, I don't know if Laura is having any technical difficulty. We'll give one more shot. All right, next up after Laura was someone who came in as meeting guest. Not sure exactly who that is. Please identify yourself so we can say hello.
Judith, I think that's you.
Oh, sorry. Judith Hank with Beyond Plastics.
There you are. Hi, how are you?
Good. Forgive me.
No worries.
So I just wanted to urge New Jersey DEP to really stick with the language in the statute. What we just heard, for instance, the suggestion to use bio-based bags. I don't think that is consistent with the statute. And I think we also, learning from other states, we want to avoid litigation on this. I was very involved in the New York plastic bag ban, which was delayed for a couple of reasons, including an effort to allow for thicker plastic bags, which a judge eventually threw out. And it just caused a lot of confusion and, quite frankly, wasted a lot of time. So I think you really want to stick with the strict construction in the statute. If someone wants to advocate for bio-based bags, which has a whole list of other problems, I think that's a matter not for DEP, because I don't think it is consistent with the statute. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have any other? We do. John Weber.
Hi, John Weber again with Surfrider Foundation. I do want to comment on the bio-based bag, bioplastics. It's still plastic, and while there might be a slight benefit on the manufacturer end, on the creation end, that's if it's not if they're made from vegetable sources, they're not made from fossil fuels. That might be a slight benefit on that end, but there really is no difference on the on the litter end. These bags get out into the environment, especially say in the coolness of the ocean. They don't break down. They have a label on them that talks about breaking down in an industrial composting facility, perhaps, but that doesn't mean that they're going to break down if they escape into the environment, the ocean, or anywhere else. So, and this, I don't think the spirit or the intent in this legislation has anything to do with, the production end of anything and the fossil fuels used in it or whatever is used in it. This bill has to do with litter reduction. We're passing a plastic bag law because our state looks like crap because there's plastic bags everywhere. So to replace the plastic bag with a bioplastic bag is not very helpful. And Surfrider Foundation has a toolkit. I'd be happy to, I don't really know, I guess I could put it in the chat, but I could put a link to our toolkit about bioplastics where we try to teach our activists that, a bioplastic bag is still a plastic bag, so don't accept that in your local bag ban law. So I'll be happy to share that with DEP if you like.
You can email us at the single-use plastics at dep.nj.gov, and you can send us it there if you'd like.
I will do that. Thanks so much.
No problem. So I want to see if any of the upcoming questions, we've had a lot of discussion about alternative bags, which is actually kind of our next section, but I want to roll back and see if anyone has anything more about defining or clarifying the exemptions before we move on, and we can talk more about like alternatives to plastic.
All right, we still have a couple hands raised. Back to A. Ambrose.
I will put my hand down and save it until the next section, as Erin just said.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, okay. Sylvia K is coming and going, and she just put her hand down. So I'm assuming, Sylvia, you want to wait until later on in the presentations. John Weber, your hand is still raised. Do you have anything additional to add at this point? I'll take
No,
that
it's
as a no.
not supposed to be. No, sorry.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Erin, I think we can move on to the next question.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So as I said, the next section is going to be alternatives to plastics and some questions around that. So we've already kind of started that discussion. You'll see here, we've included the definition again. Plastic means a synthetic material made of linking monomers through a chemical reaction to create an organic polymer chain that can be molded or extruded at high heat into various solid forms, retaining their defined shapes during the life cycle and after disposal. As a note, so the department is not going to be able to approve specific alternative bags on a case-by-case basis. Businesses may have to decide for themselves if their product meets this definition or not, and what information is needed for discussion. So we wanted to do you feel, based on that, based on the thought that businesses will have to review these alternate bags, decide and determine if by our definition in this law, that bag meets the definition of plastic, and if not, and it contains zero plastic, then technically by the definition, it would be outside of the law and then would be allowable to use on that basis. So based on that idea, do you feel the definition of plastic in the law has sufficient standards for decision making? We can open up for questions and comments then.
Sorry, Ambrose does have her hand raised.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So I want to echo a lot of what was just said about keeping a strong definition for plastic. What those of us that worked on this law with lawmakers, what the intent of the law is to move towards a reusable future, because that is the most sustainable. What lawmakers chose to do, instead of going through and defining every single kind of bag that could be banned, what the law did instead was define what is allowed and then say everything that is not in this definition is not allowed. So for example, in the law, it says a reusable bag is defined as, and it has several provisions. So, stitched handles, washable, made of approved materials, everything like that. And then it says anything not within this definition will not be permitted to be given out by grocery stores, food service businesses, etc. And the point in all of this, the intent, is not necessarily to ban plastic. It is to move towards a reusable future of everything that is single use. So anything, in the future that may end up replacing plastic as a single use, we do not want that. We want people to be able to use reusable bags that are as defined in the law. So I think this definition is great. I advocate for the DEP to stick with this definition, and certainly keep in mind that you will be approached to try to approve other single-use materials that may not necessarily be defined as traditional plastic, but as John Weber said, are still plastic. It just adds to the confusion of consumers. Think of how hard it is already to figure out if something is recyclable. If you add in something that either needs to be recycled in a very specific way or says it's recyclable even though it's not in their household, it's going to create so much more confusion for consumers. We want them to have one strategy: bring your reusable bags. And that's going to be the best future for New Jersey. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for your input on that. Next, we have Mary Ellen Papard.
Hi. Can you hear me okay? I lost
Yes.
some of my functions there. Okay, great. Thank you. I have two comments. One is that, I'm sorry, from the Food Council, yeah, our members are certainly looking into different options. As some of the members on this call mentioned, they are looking at reusable. They're also looking at boxes and bins and other options. But with the bags, they are also looking at some of the plant-based bags, as Linda mentioned. And it's my understanding that, yes, as I believe Mr. Weber mentioned, there are some bio bags that are made of plastic. But I know we have talked to some bag companies that have had certifications that their bags are not plastic, do not contain any plastics or microplastics. So there are some plant-based options out there that do not have any plastic. And then to the second part of the previous one or two comments, if the letter of the law does not ban any bag other than a plastic bag or a paper bag as defined under the law. So while I can certainly understand there are some groups that perhaps would want to maybe they want to revisit that, but the law that we have in front of us does not ban any other bags, does not ban any other single-use bags or plant-based bags or any bags other than the ones that are defined specifically as plastic or paper carryout bags, which may not be provided, sold, or given out. But nothing else is banned. So, whether or not they're reusable is and that is somewhat beside the point, just for in terms of what is and isn't allowed to be provided or sold in this state. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much. Next we have Ray Cantor. Hey, Ray, how are you?
Hey, good to talk to you. I wasn't prepared or going to talk today, but I just want to reiterate Mary Ellen's comments a second ago. Regardless of what anyone thinks or wants from this law or what they think the purpose was or should be or what the policy should be, DEP is limited to the language of the law itself. This is not a law that says only reusable bags as defined are what can be used in any particular store. This is a bill that bans certain uses and has certain exemptions. So if a bag does not meet the definition of plastic or the definition of paper, however it's defined in the law, then DEP has no authority under this law to prohibit its use. So there may be some nuances here of how some of the terms in plastic or paper may be defined, but if it's not one of those two things, this law does not ban it and DEP has no authority. So I would be very cautious in trying to uphold what people tell you the intent is or what their policies are or what the legislature should have done. This is what the legislature did do, and DEP is limited to that. So again, stick to the letter of the law.
All right, thank you, Ray. Do we have any additional hands raised? Marie Cruzan from Ander. Marie, are you there?
Just had to unmute myself. Thank you.
There you are.
Sorry about that. I'm from the Association of New Jersey Recyclers, and my concern when we first did this bill and why we did this is because the effect of plastic bags on the recycling system is horrible. It is the #1 contaminant in the state of New Jersey, and it's the #1 contaminant in the nation. It gums up the system completely. Yes, it's a litter problem, but it's a real problem for recyclers, and you can make it thicker and it's still going to be a problem. You can make it bioplastics and it's still going to be a problem because it's going to act like that. So it's going to be a problem, and it's a major problem. You have to shut down a whole system for time today to clean it up, to put it back, to clean it, because it just winds around there. So for us, this is, in many ways, it's an important bill to help us clean up the system. We need to have this system cleaned up.
All right, Marie, thank you so much. I would like to note in our chat from Laura Rusaman, apparently she's still having some technical difficulties. Our concern as a distributor to food service establishments, we are challenged with extreme supply chain issues and very lengthy lead times. and sourcing the reusable bags and getting them in time for the implementation of the ban is going to be difficult. Erin, I don't know if we have any response to Laura's concern.
No official response, but we definitely are aware of all the shipping and delays issues.
Okay. And Marie, your hand is still raised. Do you have any additional info to add?
Oh, I just said it and done. Thank you.
Okay. Laura, you're very welcome. Linda Doherty, let's hear from you. Linda, are you there?
Thank you. I just wanted to make an observation. And our industry, the supermarket industry, is committed to making this law, as successful as we can. One thing when it came to be 2 years ago is that our customers were not using online services, probably less than 5%. Now with a bit more than 20% of some stores, the premise of moving our customers to a reusable bag is something that we're concerned with because customers are not coming back into the store. They're grocery shopping, they're home, they'll be paying for a reusable bag every week or bags, and now they'll get a collection of bags that they're not bringing back and reusing. So I just want to make that comment because the consumer is changing dramatically and their shopping habits are changing dramatically from just 2 years ago. So I think when we're looking at alternative bio products, it's to help the customer and not to create a glut of reusable bags in people's homes. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Linda. Next up, we have someone noted as meeting guest. I'm not sure who exactly that is.
I think it's Judith Inc.
Okay.
Again, switching to bio-based bags is not solving the problem at all. And I'd like to share some examples from other states. In the state of Vermont, a couple of years ago, they adopted a law similar to the New Jersey statute dealing with multiple materials, polystyrene bags and plastic straws only upon request. Walmart, okay, not a food co-op. Walmart decided that the way they wanted to deal with the Vermont statute, which was a ban on plastic bags and a 5-cent fee on paper bags, was to just not offer any bags at all to their customers. Every customer was expected to bring their own bag, and it has worked out just fine. I think the reason Walmart did this is because paper bags are more expensive than plastic bags. There's a chain called Aldi's that for years, without any law on the books, you just know when you shop at Aldi's, you bring your own bags. With some exceptions in small stores in New York City, the New York State ban on plastic bags, once we got over dealing with litigation by a plastic bag company, has been enforced pretty smoothly. There's been no discussion of replacing single-use plastic bags with bio-based bags. So I think the key here is to educate not only the stores, but customers. Customers of stores are really interested in reducing the use of plastic. There was a poll out from Oceana last week. 80% of American voters want to reduce single-use plastics. So I think customers of stores will embrace this change, but the sooner they are educated, the better. And if some stores are thinking of going from plastic bags to bio-based bags, I don't think that'll be well received from the public, and it will cause some real confusion.
All right, thank you very much for your perspective. Do we have any more hands? I'm not seeing any more new ones. Erin, I'll defer to you.
Right.
Oh, we have one more.
Oh.
Is it Carrie or Kari Martin from Clean Ocean Action?
The latter, Kari. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. I'm not sure if this is the point in time because I'm not sure what other questions you have, but I did want to ask you and the DEP about the Plastic Advisory Council that is mandated in the law to form to address some of the questions and the information that will be coming out, whether it's technologies and alternatives. So we are talking about alternatives. So I know that the council will be charged with evaluating some of these alternatives and the implementation of the law. I just wanted to know if the representatives of the DEP and the stakeholder process knew of any updates about when we're going to see that council rolled out and how, if they play a part in the stakeholder process at all, because I know that's happening now, and I don't know when the council is actually coming out.
I believe to answer your question, I believe the creation of the council is in process, including making appointments. I don't know the official status of when their first meetings are or anything like that, but it is process, and to my knowledge, it's in motion and not stagnant. As far as stakeholdering, I'm sure they will be involved, once their council is fully formed, but at the moment they wouldn't be.
But they will, if you have further stakeholder meetings after the council gathers, they would be, part of the stakeholder process.
They would absolutely be included.
Let's defer to Janine, new director of the Division of Sustainable Waste Management.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, we are very close. In fact, I'm hoping today to get out a save the date for our first Plastic Advisory Council meeting sometime around, we think, April 4th, Seth? April 4th. So we really want to show everybody on the council what we've done so far to prepare for the rollout in May, and to start working on these important issues. There was definitely a small delay in getting everyone appointed. It's a very laborious process as maybe Judith, you probably know too, since you're on it. Yeah, but more to come on that very shortly.
Thank you.
Thanks, Janine. Seth, do you have any additional input to add?
No, Janine jumped in front of me online and she handled it, so thank you. But yes, we are planning on getting a save the date out actually today to those who are appointed by the governor's office, and so we should be hearing about that shortly.
Great. And Judith, do you have any further questions or comments? Okay. I see no more hands. Going once, going twice. Okay, we're going to go back to Erin.
Okay, thank you very much, Judy. We do have a slide here for closing discussion, but we did create some additional questions in case time allowed. So I think I might move to there, just since we do still have time left. So one of our additional questions, what should the process be for obtaining a polystyrene waiver? What information do you think is important? So this goes along with the waiver process that's only allowed for the polystyrene foam. You do have to meet one of two situations that is laid out in the law, and we as a department are tasked with implementing a program for waiver review. So we want to get input on that process from all of you. Any thoughts?
John Weber. Hi again, John.
Hi again as well. I think you should prepare for no waivers because the state of Maryland banned styrofoam, I suppose 2 or 3 years before we got around to it in New Jersey, and they had a similar waiver provision, and they got absolutely zero people asking for waivers. Maybe New Jersey is exceptional, and maybe we are exceptional in that way. I hope we're not, but I think that just shows that there are alternatives out there. They are affordable, and they are getting more and more affordable as more and more jurisdictions outlaw EPS foam. So Don't believe me, don't take my word for it, check with Maryland, but I think you will find that they have that same waiver and nobody took the state up on it.
Thank you. Just to clarify, we do have a waiver form already up on the website for people to apply. This was a pretty early on addition to our website, and we have begun receiving waiver requests. I think it's less than 10 at the moment, though.
Only in New Jersey, oh well.
All right, thanks, John. Do we have any additional input? Okay, Erin, let me ask you, when we were talking about the process, have in any of the requests for waivers, have the requesters proffered any information or steps that they think the department should go through in granting a waiver? I didn't know if we've received any information like actually through those waiver requests.
Nothing about how we should apply, work through the process or anything like that. Most of the waivers have been fairly minimal in the amount of information they provided. So we're considering reworking the process, and obviously we do need to create a process from scratch. This is a new program for us. So that's where we want to get, what kind of information do you guys think is important for us to collect to use in our assessment of whether or not we approve a waiver? Most of the waivers that have come in are for seasonal businesses that have and a lot of things that people have excess supply and they want a waiver for a year to use up, what they already have, or for general, they say there's nothing out there that works, the same way for them. Those are kind of the things, but the general information that we received have been quite minimal.
Okay, Ray Cantor, do you happen to have any additional insight on this issue for us?
I'm not sure if I have insight, but I have a request. However you do this, just be transparent. Make sure everyone's aware of applications. Any decisions you made should be put on your website with explanation as to why you granted or denied it. I think that will help the process move forward as people decide whether to or not to apply for a waiver, and will help you folks as well from a precedent perspective being consistent. So transparency, I think, is important.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. I also wanted to note we heard from Laura Rusaman in the chat. I'm just going to read her comment for everyone to be able to catch up. She states that we have had customers who have already expressed interest in the waiver. The conversion to foam, to plastic or a Bag S or a mineral-filled product will be very costly, at least initially. Also, supply chain issues will be a challenge as well, as those who have been typical foam users will now all convert to an alternative material. In our industry, manufacturers base your product supply off of allocations of previous years, which will leave a short supply for our customers. Thank you, Laura, for that note. Next, we'll hear from Allison Swedler.
Good afternoon,
Allison,
everyone. Hi,
I hope I didn't butcher your last name.
It's okay. It's Swedler, but you're definitely not the only one, so it's okay.
All right.
So I also just kind of wanted to echo what Laura just said. I mean, for us, we operate in multiple states, so we also have the added challenge from a logistics and warehousing standpoint of having multiple products in different forms. If some stay in foam, some have to change to PET. That adds an additional logistical and warehouse challenge for us in storing products. And again, just echoing the supply world right now is continuing to be a significant challenge just to get products that we already have allocations for. So it's very concerning that everyone in New Jersey would have to be moving to the same type of containers because there's just not enough out there, right now. And with all of the labor challenges that all of our vendors are continuing to face, I'm not sure when that would change, or at least, let up for it to be something that would be more feasible. And even from a national vendor standpoint, I know we don't really have a lot of control over that, but you're looking at companies like Tyson and Purdue who, also do business with multiple chains and multiple companies within New Jersey. But if companies like that also have to start pulling from the same, product pool of these new PET or at least non-polystyrene trays, it's going to cause significant challenges for everyone else out here.
Thank you. I do want to note, though, that polystyrene provisions also have exemptions, including trays used for raw meat and fish and poultry. That's good for an additional 2 years. So that specific product, along with product received prepackaged by a manufacturer, like eggs or ramen, that's already packaged, are exempted for an additional 2 years.
Yes,
so
definitely understand that part, but okay, even again, it's just, as company, you're not going to wait until January of 2024 to make these changes. We have to start having these conversations now. And it's just adding an additional layer because, again, I think Laura made the same comment. We don't know what the movement's going to be. We don't know, there's allocations that are out there existing, and we don't know when that's going to shift. And is it going to be in time in 2 years? Again, you're not going to be waiting until March or April of 2024 to make these changes. So it's just very difficult to have these conversations in such an unknown world right now from a logistical cost standpoint and from a supply chain standpoint.
Understood. Thank you so much, Allison. Next up, we have Mary Ellen Papard.
Hi again. Thanks so much. Actually, so Allison and Laura had said, much of what I was going to say about, the supply chain issues, and if everyone is going to be transitioning. We've certainly seen this in other states when we've gone to, when we banned different products, and take New York and the situation with paper bags. They're a lot harder to get, a lot more expensive. It's very, very difficult. So just, I suspect we may be seeing more waivers as the months go on. And then one of my questions about this, I'm a little concerned about timing. And I think maybe Erin, if I heard you correctly, you said you were maybe going to go back and revisit the application or the form. I'm just wondering, because this is going to take place in about this is in May. We're talking about May for the first round, right? Not the ones that get an extra 2 years. And so I guess I'm wondering, is it your thought that hopefully you'll have the waivers in place or not, approved or denied by May? And what would the plan be for a company that, for example, can't get the product, applies for a waiver, what if they're in limbo? I'm hoping that this will either be resolved by May in terms of an individual application, or if they are denied an application for their waiver, will there be a grace period that they'll be, if let's say I'm just putting this out there, what if they didn't get an answer till the end of April, right? Will they be expected to then switch over on May 4th? And so I'm just getting concerned about the timing process. Thanks so much.
Sure, thank you. Just a clarification is our possible reworking is to more clarify the kind of information we need to even consider a waiver. Some of the specific things listed out in the available options are things like gross annual income and not things that are not affordable or cost effective, those sort of things. So we need to just specify things that are already on there to make it more clear what we're asking. Because the waivers we've already been getting have been fairly minimal in what they submit, we're finding it hard to really review them. As far as timing, we will definitely note that. Thank you.
All right, and next we have Allison Swedler.
Sorry, I had one more train of thought.
That's fine. That's fine.
Also, our stores use the polystyrene trays that have the extension in other areas of the store. So I would just be curious to see if there's any chance of getting that extension as well to be uniform with the use of trays, or if it is in fact, going to be banned effective May of this year.
The exemption is specific for trays used for only raw meat, fish, and poultry. So the similar trays used for vegetable fruit, vegetables or cooked foods wouldn't be in line with the way that exemption is written, but would qualify for an application for a waiver.
Okay.
Not saying if it would be approved or not, just they could
Right.
apply because it is
Okay.
polystyrene.
Great, thank you.
Okay, do we have any further discussion points for the polystyrene waiver? All right, Erin, I'm not seeing any more hands raised. I don't know if we might want to move on to the next point.
Sure. So our next additional question that we had prepared here is we had talked a little bit about, you know, to further define whether we need to further define the definition of plastic or something like that. So on a more general sense, is there anything in the law, any part of the law that you think needs further defining or clarification through rules to make it clearer, more understandable, more, and then thus more effective overall?
Okay, first we have N. Dini Checo from NJEC.
Hi, thank you so much. A concern that municipalities have is in reference to enforcement and compliance. And I was wondering, I know that DEP is working on a guidance document. I'm just trying to get a sense of when that guidance document will be available. Thank you.
Thanks, Deanie. I don't have a timeline for you. We're still working on it. So I don't have a sense of exactly when, but it is in process.
I appreciate that. The other question I have is...
May I interrupt for one second? Because we have someone from our compliance and enforcement division, Sonia Silcox. Could you provide any additional light for the answer?
Yes, I work in the enforcement program, so I'm part of the development for that document. Could I just get, I guess, a little more information in terms of what you're seeking, given that the law is broad in that it's enforceable by the department, it's enforceable at the county level, and it's enforceable at the municipal level. The department can put out a guidance document, but it's simply guidance. So I would just like to know, I guess, are you speaking on behalf of municipalities, or I guess what area are you coming from? I'm not familiar with the whole background.
Oh, sure. So I work for the Association of New Jersey Environmental Commissions, and we do support environmental commissions, green team members, and municipal officials. And we've been working on this law for quite a few years. And in fact, just last month, Erin was one of our speakers. So there's municipal officials that don't know what to do next. What are they responsible for doing within the municipalities? I understand that so let's, for example, a resident calls calls their township administrator and says, "Hi, the store is non-compliant on plastic bags." Now the municipality has to make a determination, what should I do next with this information? And if they if they decide that they're going to handle the enforcement piece, what does that look like? Do they have to, do they write it up? Do they send it to you? Is it a violation? Is it a violation per day? Is it a violation per offense? Those sort of clarity questions. And then taking it up the chain to the county environmental health agency. What is the process involved there from the municipality perspective? Does that help? And I'm happy to talk offline with you.
Yes, that is helpful in terms of what we're developing. I don't know if we'll be able to answer all those questions, but it's just helpful getting a sense of, what kind of questions are out there, what kind of things, we should consider and need to look to address. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Deanie, I just wanted to make sure that we answered all your questions and had it fielded to the right person. Do you have anything further to ask or state?
Yeah, this is, I guess, I'm sitting here processing what discussed. Two things on the education component. I think for the stores to also share how do you deal with the end of life of the bag? Can it go through textile recycling? Is it going to the landfill? I think that piece is really important. Certainly these bags are supposed to last up to 125 uses. They don't always, but regardless, how do you deal with it after the fact? That should be part of that conversation. Education, I should say. And then the last question I had was more of a process question on the e-commerce, which is, I understand that e-commerce, people will have possibly a glut of reusable bags in their homes, but is it possible for the next time there's a delivery, they can exchange out the reusable bags and get fresh bags? So there's always an exchange process. I think that's one way to possibly solve that issue. It's more of a process question.
Thanks. As far as the education, we'll definitely know your thoughts on the end of life of the reusable bags and that education. And then for the reusable bag exchange, I know that's something that's been brought up before. I think it's going to come down more on an individual store basis because it's a process, especially if food is involved and things need to be sanitized and washed. It's a very specific process. So that might become more down to individual stores creating programs.
All right. We had another comment from Laura Russaman. I'm just going to read that for the benefit of all. For institutions such as a school district who have had to face pivot from typical service to preparing food for the kids to take home, how will they be impacted? Are school districts eligible for a waiver? Many schools use the 5-compartment foam trays. Again, due to supply chain challenges, sourcing a pulp or molded fiber plate is difficult at this time.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for that. For schools, they would have to follow the plastic and styrofoam portions of the law, and of course, their food service would also need to technically follow the straw portion upon request rule. They would be able to use paper because they would not be considered a grocery store. And they would be eligible to apply for a waiver for their polystyrene products, but not any bags because the waivers are only available for polystyrene foam.
All right. Thank you, Erin. Next up, we have JD. Good afternoon. JD, are you there? If you are, you're still muted.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yep, there you are.
Yep. All right, great. Yeah, I was on my phone too, so I said to unmute my computer. Just building on the e-commerce delivery scenario, there is a growing number of retailers that are using more and more third-party delivery services to deliver the groceries to the home. So in that case, that particular driver may not be returning to the spoke store. So just keep in mind that hinders the ability then to return the bags from previous orders to that same driver.
All right, thank you for that point. Do we have any other input, comments? Nancy Ann Fama?
Yes, hello. So I'm wondering, is there any interpretation that would permit a store to use paper bags for its online delivery service?
Are you speaking in general or grocery store?
Grocery store, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm.
There's nothing, the law doesn't mention at all any e-commerce, so it would just be anything for the grocery store, to my knowledge.
So if it doesn't exclude it, you're saying that it would therefore be included? Or like, for example, when people order from our kitchen, they're ordering a prepared meal, which happens with some regularity. That item that has to be delivered along with, let's say, non-food service items what you're saying now is that that would not be an acceptable interpretation. If it's not mentioned and it's not specifically called out as grocery stores have been carved out very specifically, since this is what we're talking about, e-commerce, I think that needs to be clarified. And I know that we've discussed in prior meetings, the concept that this is food service. What we do is food service, and that may or may not include prepared meals. I don't know if the people that work in the government fully understand on the application side with the grocery stores, with the e-commerce, what this is going to represent to the consumer and to the business in terms of the logistics of it. Carrying food up flights of stairs with boxes when before you could put bags on your arm. These are the types of things that we're really looking for a very definite answer on.
Thank you. I appreciate your feedback. I don't know if I have an exact answer, but current descriptions would be we have to, again, as mentioned earlier, we have to follow the letter of the way the law is written and given to us. And currently it just says grocery store. It doesn't say, different portions of those stores can be broken up based on different processes they do. That's just, our current review. But again, stakeholding process is important and we'll take into account all input.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but there is carve out, right? So we could still use the bags for produce or for nuts or whatever. I mean, what we are trying to do is to get the paper bags to be permitted use for the online vehicle. And as you go back and you discuss this, I know, and I can certainly speak to all of the meetings we've had at the Food Council. This is a very critical issue. It's literally represents hundreds of thousands of dollars a month just in online sales. And if you just, kind of boil that down to what is the actual mechanism for the delivery and acceptance of those items, which may or may not include, food service items. So, and I'm available, if you want to talk on offline or whatever as well. We're very afraid of this part of the law. We've as retailers, we've taken the plastic bag. We have two towns of ours with ordinances, and we adjusted to that, and our customers adjusted to that. But customers come into stores and they don't bring their bags in, and we hope to change that over time, but it's just a reality. And then customers also have been increasing numbers switching to online. And logistically with boxes for the delivery, it's just going to create a problem that if it was just carved out under the food service delivery concept, I think you would have a lot of people on this call very happy, and as well as our customers.
Thank you. We appreciate your input.
Okay.
All right. Thanks so much. Next, we have John Weber.
Hi. I'm going to ask the same question that Deanie Checo just asked, because and her question was about, well, how's it going to work on a municipal level if a store is not compliant? Who does the enforcing? The law passed, I believe it was November of 2020. It's passed quite some time ago, so I can't imagine that nobody has thought about how that will work. And I can't imagine that Deanie just put this on people's radar screens today and they said, oh, we need to figure that out. I cannot imagine that is the answer. So if there are even any kind of preliminary thoughts in the last year or so, could you share those? Like, how do you think this will work on the municipal level? Like, what's the vision? Call the state? Does the local code enforcer have the power to, give some notice of violation? How does that work? And I appreciate that you're entertaining a question a second time.
Sonia, I don't know if you want to chime in or if you want me to try to take on.
Sure. No, I can chime in on that. Definitely not just coming across to us now. It has been underway for some months. As I kind of indicated, the enforcement without rules, because the rules are what's under development right now, so the enforcement of the statute can be handled by the local officials, and it can be done per the statute. So my understanding of Ms. Checo's question is there's a need for additional guidance in terms of how that would be handled, and that's going to be different in municipalities that may have already had ordinances on this regard and those that don't. Similar at the county level, because it's all over the place. So, and even if the department, develops a guidance, it's still up to the specific level of government, to whether it's the county or the municipality, and how their process operations may work. So again, without specific rules, we don't have a clear framework that will be developed in the rules, hopefully, at least in some regard. However, there's still a underlayer that will have to be sorted out based on that agency's internal workings, so to say. So we're trying to at least have a framework, and we're working within the framework of what is in the law. So what the law authorizes, any enforcing agency to do, that's the start of it. So it's a matter of breaking it down. Right now, the enforcement for the department is being delegated to the county level agencies. We have partnerships with county health agencies to do other solid waste enforcement. So this is being incorporated into some of those activities. The plastic straw, thank you. Plastic straw portion is a separate piece. So we're aware of it, but we're focusing on basically the two aspects that haven't yet been taken effect.
That was much more helpful to me, so I really appreciate you going through that in more detail. Thank you very much.
Sure, you're welcome.
Thank you, Sonia.
Sure.
I think I totally agree with everything Sonia said. Just like so many other aspects of government, it looks different for every municipality in the state. As we say in recycling, New Jersey is a home rule. Every municipality does their own thing and they set it up differently. So who is going to do your enforcement? Well, I think that's up to the municipality, because it could be in one department or a different department, or they might have certain, powers and not others. It's going to look different a little bit everywhere. So, we appreciate this discussion as well, because enforcement is always a top question that we get asked.
All right. Thanks so much, John. Next, we have Linda Doherty.
Hi, thank you again. Right. When I hear about the approach, I hope it's about compliance and not enforcement. If there are any individual stores, I know the supermarkets will be ready, but there could be some stores on Main Street or some smaller bodegas who are not aware or just can't get the bags because of supply chain issues. So I hope it's not about enforcement and coming down hard on these businesses, but it's more about compliance and understanding their challenges and educating them and getting them where they need to be, instead of having the hard arm of the law on top of them.
Thank you, Linda. And I think you're absolutely right. We're definitely on the education train and getting people to come into compliance, letting them know ahead of time. As you know, we worked with you before. We've been doing business education through the Business Action Center, and also with resources, free business resources through New Jersey Clean Communities, and the Backup NJ program. We're really getting education out there to educate everyone. And I think the goal is always to educate. And like I tell people with straws, while the enforcement through Department of Health is still in the works and coming up with the enforcement plan, I tell people, if you see something, let them know. If you see a restaurant, let them know, hey, there's this new law, maybe you didn't know about it. And I think that's always a good step. And based on the way the law is written, again, there's not a ton of details. It's very vague when it comes to enforcement. It does lay out a penalty structure, the first of which is a warning, which also serves as education without fees or harsh punishments per se. So I just wanted to share that. But yes, education is a big component of the law.
Right, and Erin, you raise a good point for those on the call right now. There is the Clean Communities Council charged with the public education campaign, and also the Business Action Center, two great resources who have been out in the streets providing education, training. And I would suggest that others utilize these two groups who are out there and really doing a great job. And they're there to support the business community and help educate the customers and our shoppers on the new laws.
Absolutely. They've been great partners since the law was written. We've been working very closely with them. So there's a lot of free resources out there to help educate both businesses and consumers.
Agreed.
All right, Linda, thank you so much. Do we have any other comments, questions? I'm going to double check the chat. There are no other comments in there. Erin, I think we might have hit the end. Oh, nope, we have one.
Here comes Melanie.
Melanie Willoughby. Hi, Melanie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
I'm listening very closely to all of the comments because I'm the executive director of the New Jersey Business Action Center, and we've been working very closely with Erin and the DEP and the New Jersey Food Council, as well as the New Jersey Clean Communities Council, to be able to educate businesses and the consumer, and also local officials, because they are a very important part of reaching many of the little businesses in their communities, in their downtowns, that may not be getting all of our emails and our flyers and reading social media. So it really takes a village to get this information out. And I really want to emphasize that in trying to get the mayors and the local officials and the county officials to all help us, because we have the materials. Joanne is just putting on a little information about the toolkit that's available. We have it in English and Spanish. And also Joanne's working on getting it in other languages as well. So we have the materials for people so that they learn about the new law and how they can comply. There's also a vendor clearinghouse, which is on the New Jersey Business Action Center website for options for businesses on where they can purchase the reusable bags. So if anybody needs anything, you can just get in touch with the back, and I'll put that in the chat. And thank you.
Thanks so much, Melanie. And by the way, Joanne had posted, it's www.bagupnj.com for those of you that can't see the chat. Erin, I think we might be ready to close up.
Okay.
All right, let's go to the next slide.
That is our last question.
Yep.
I will, do you want to do our closing remarks today?
Yeah, I could do it. On behalf of the Department of Environmental Protection, I would like to thank you so much for meeting with us this afternoon. It's been great to have this back and forth and feedback and exchange of ideas and information. This is very, very helpful, especially for our regulatory process and putting together our rules for this new law. I'd like to thank you for your time, your attention, and your input. Summaries of the topics that we covered today at today's meeting and our past meetings, relevant information pertaining to the stakeholder process will be made available at www.nj.gov/DEP/workgroups index.html. Tyrone, if you could throw that address in the chat, that would be great. Following New Jersey Register publication of the rule proposal, formal comments on the rules may be made by anyone during the announced comment period. Please direct your main questions via email to singleUseplastics@dep.nj.gov, which is listed here at number 1. At number 3 is the New Jersey Business Action Center site. And number 4, New Jersey Clean Communities and Bag Up New Jersey that we've talked about for about the last 10-15 minutes of our presentation. Again, I'd like to thank you on behalf of the department for engaging with us in discussions on the plastic bag ban law and the use of single-use plastics. We're going to be scheduling another stakeholder meeting with all of you again in the near future. This is just the second meeting of, I'm sure, many more. If you have any questions or concerns or would like to provide us with comments or impressions about the law, please email us. We'll definitely be in touch with that, and we appreciate any kind of input that you can give us and feedback regarding how implementing this law is going to impact you and your business and the regulated community. That's all that I have. Erin, would you like to put forth a final goodbye?
Sure. I just want to say thank you all for being here and putting your sharing your very helpful input. We really do listen and take it to heart when considering writing our rules for this very important law. I appreciate you all being here today. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much. We hope you all have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.